A mixed bag of emotions in a high-scoring, potent one against the Pistons. But the bottom line is areas where the Jazz were not as good as they used to be, they're getting better, and wins are following. It's next on Locked On Jazz. Bum 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 pow.
You are Locked On Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
How are you? I'm David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, Jazz NBA insider, and this is Locked On Jazz. On today's edition of Locked On Jazz, we're going to look at that game, kind of a mixed bag of emotions, but also some incredible growth areas by this team, regardless of who you were playing. Walker Kessler, Simone Fontecchio, and Collin Sexton, in my opinion, are changing who the Utah Jazz are, not to take anything away from Lauri Markkanen, and the play of Walker Kessler, and some really interesting notes at the end of the press conference yesterday with Will Hardy about George Rodman, who's the coach that does the reviews for the Jazz. And other than the review the other night that Jordan Clarkson made him do, which was wrong, he's won 9 of his last 10 challenges. And when the Jazz keep winning close games, this is actually something that George Rodman deserves some credit, because when you're stealing a point or two every night, it really, really matters. And it's not quite every night, but it's a lot. So we'll talk about George Rodman and the challenges that the Jazz are doing as well today. As I mentioned, I'm David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, Jazz NBA insider. This is Locked On Jazz. It's your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz, giving you insight, expertise, geeky numbers, and hopefully making it way better to be a Jazz fan each and every day. Thank you for making Locked On Jazz your first listen. We are free and available on all podcasting apps, as well as on YouTube. Please subscribe, hit that bell button on YouTube so you get notified whenever we're live. And to the everydayers, you're the best. Few notes. Yes, I have a bruise right here on my arm from screaming and going like this last night that we should foul. Okay, I'm a foul down 3 guy, or up 3 guy. I'm actually a foul up like 7-8 guy. Just to get into it, really. Yeah. So I have a bruise, literally, not lying. I have a little red mark right there still from last night because I hit myself that hard. Okay, we should have fouled. I want to take one other note. I'm not begging for this. I just mean it with all sincerity. And I don't actually know why it happened yesterday. Yesterday was weird. Before the game, I had 3 couples come up to me and thank me for my work. Like, awesome. Thank you. If you're an everydayer and you see me, do not feel like you can't say hi. I love it. I'm no different than anyone else. Positive affirmation makes me feel awesome. The sincerity yesterday, one of them was Chris Howell's CFO. Another was a nice couple sitting in the front row, right, just by our seats. The sincerity was just awesome. And I just want to say thanks. Like, and I really mean, like, it's embarrassing, and I don't really think I deserve it. And frankly, the passion that you guys bring as Jazz fans is what makes this job so great. But I'm also someone who is really, really fortunate in life that when I was 9 years old, I told my dad I wanted to do this job. I had no plan B. I still don't have a plan B, so hopefully they keep me. And I do this job just kind of with hopefully a passion, a love, because of I love doing the job, and because hopefully I know how important it is to you guys. And over the years, I've matured enough to understand that, like, oh, wow, if someone actually listens to 3 shows a week, they're like listening to, like, they're an everyday, or they're spending an hour and a half with me, 2 hours. Like, I don't get 2 hours with my wife. So I just am super appreciative that most of you say hi, and I'm super appreciative of all of you. Even if you don't get a chance to say hi, you don't have a chance to get in an arena and be in the Toyota Club to see me. It's a little bit of an elitist thing for me to say that. Like, so I just want to say thanks. It was really cool. And I don't actually know why, but I think yesterday I needed it. I didn't feel like I was off, but it was great. So super appreciative. All right. Yesterday's a mixed bag. Detroit's 3-30, and you end up going to overtime. And frankly, what I think is most interesting about the game yesterday, and Ron and I talked about this on Postcast last night, is the fact that the Jazz really forgot to start the game and then never regained control of it. What you really would expect to happen when you're playing a team like that is that you go through like 2 quarters, and then you put the hammer down the 3rd quarter, and then you run away. And we hit the opening shot in the 3rd, and you took a 1-point lead, and it sure felt like we were about to go up by 15. That didn't happen at all. And that's credit to Detroit. But it's also interesting to me, and a credit to, I think, the growth of the Jazz, that they got through that. this was a game where they did not have good communication. You should not allow Bojan Bogdanovic to have 15 threes. They should have fouled late. They made life much more difficult on them than they needed to. That's like kind of basketball, like malpractice. Like, I don't know if that's the right phrase, but like like you gotta know that. Like, and I thought Will Hardy's post-game press conference was really gentle and really nice and like really, really, really awesome. Actually, like if you want a press conference, I don't know how you get access to it, but if it's up on UtahJazz.com, like if you want a press conference to make you believe in your head coach, I'd go watch that one. Like that one was so well thought out and so positive to his team. Because frankly, like not on the coach, like on players who've played their game the whole life. If a guy's dribbling up the ball with like 4 seconds left, you foul him. Like it's like I actually don't think it's complicated. Like and Will's super gentle about it. Like, hey, there's a bunch of emotion and there's all this going on. And, hey, I've never been in front of 19,000 people and just had my teammate hit a big shot. So I actually don't know. So I might be wrong and he might be right. He probably is. But like I just think you should know that. And like I thought there was a super interesting quote by Collin Sexton about Jordan Clarkson, where Jordan Clarkson said to Collin Sexton, well, no one told you. Well, this actually, as someone who runs a company, I think is one of the most interesting things about like, and I'm probably revealing a little bit too much about Locked On, so I'm hoping some of our staff is not listening. But like, we're still a merging company. We actually might be the largest sports podcast network in the country at this point. Like we had nearly 300 million listens and views last year. It's kind of crazy. But we're still like, our motto is we take young kids and we build them up and they grow into different roles of management and they're great. Like they're unbelievably talented people. If there's a weakness in this company, it's either because of me as the leader or them in their development, is that there's too often where I'm like, okay, let's go do this. And then it still comes back to me getting it done and me saying like, okay, we're going to do this for marketing. We're going to do this for content. Like, there's just too much of that still. Like I need to that's either my fault that they're all dependent on me as a leader, or they're not quite at a place where they feel comfortable enough to do it. So it's probably on me, right? Okay. So let's use the analogy here on Collin Sexton not fouling on the final play, or Jordan Clarkson being close enough where he should have fouled on the final play, or somebody else. Is like the comment was, well, they didn't tell you. Actually, not something that they like. If Miami Heat, who've been to two NBA finals in the last 4 years, are in that circumstance, no one's telling them. They just know. They're just mature and old enough and far enough along the way that no one's telling them. It's not because Eric Spoelstra's better than Will Hardy or that their players are smarter than the Jazz players. They've just been there so many times. They're just so mature. You know, Kevin Love's been there. Jimmy Butler's been there. Like Kyle Lowry's been there like 15 million times. So I think I thought it was a really fascinating quote. Just this wasn't entirely, well, it actually was in my notes before I wanted to go. But so I just thought it was super interesting. Like that's to me is really, really eye-opening about where everybody is and who they are as players and what's taking place. And if you look at Collin is awesome. And he has changed there are three guys to me that have changed the team. Obviously, if Jordan Clarkson doesn't play well, we don't win games. But that's, we need him to play well. But there are three guys that have changed the game. And to me, Collin's one of those. In the way that he has just brought an energy level, diving on the floor late in the game there on a major play, that if he doesn't make those plays, like it forces everyone else to play as hard. I think so. Like the biggest thing we changed, I thought, is frankly, is that Collin Sexton, Simone Fontecchio play more. They both play hard. Okay, let's talk about Collin for a second. Collin's played 4 clutch minutes this season. 4 last night, probably. He's played 9 games. Oh, he's played more than that. He's played 9 games of clutch this year. They're probably all recently. Last year, he played in 21 clutch games. The year before, he played in 5, and the year before, he played in 21. Okay, that's pretty limited. If you want to get down to like late close, final 2 minutes of a game within 2 possessions, in the last 3 years, Collin has played in 25 of those games. Like, probably for very few minutes. I don't have the minute number on it, but very few minutes. Okay. Like go pull Kyle Lowry or some other guy. It's like 300. This is just kind of where we are. So, all right. Now back to mixed bag of emotions. Same mixed bag of emotions, I think, coming off 2 monster wins, Dallas and Miami, playing a 3-30 team. They kind of blinked for a little bit. But on the other end, by the end of the night, they shot a 50-50-90, which is the 9th time in NBA history that any team has ever made 50% of their shots, 50% of their threes, and 90% of their free throws. Thanks to Tim Reynolds of AP, who had that off a Tony Jones tour. They made an incredible amount of shots last night. We talked about yesterday that the one abnormality on the Jazz right now is their fourth quarter and clutch game shooting. Okay, well, they were 5 of 8 in the fourth quarter again last night from 3. 11 of 20. Like, at some point, when you have made the mistake that you didn't come out to play early and then you never regain control of the game and you're fighting uphill all night, you're really forcing yourself into some tough moments. And the Jazz hit 5 of 8 from 3, 11 of 20 in the fourth quarter from overall, and then proceeded to go 3 of 6 and 1 of 1, like, and hit 9 of 9 free throws late. The fortitude and the focus on an offensive end, sure, most points allowed. But you know what? The Jazz aren't that good offensively this year either. They are recently. They're getting better and better. But like, oh, well, you allowed the Detroit Pistons 148 points and they're 3-30. Yeah, but you didn't lose. And that's actually pretty important here. Like, going into last night, the Jazz ranked, I think, I have it, I have my daily game notes I can pull up. I think, this was not a game of offensive teams last night. The Pistons came in 29th. The Jazz came in 24th in the league offensively. Now, over the last 10 games, we're getting way better. And after last night, we're 23rd. And, if you go run the last 10 games, I think we're about now 12th offensively. So massive growth. But the Jazz made it tough on themselves last night. They didn't come out with urgency. They didn't come out with physicality. Happens. And then they had to play uphill all night, and Detroit played hard, and they stayed with it and had an unbelievable offensive game. And once again, we're crazy good in the clutch, other than this little foul thing. Not a little, but so really, yeah, lots of little bogey shouldn't get 15 threes. You got to foul. You still won, and you actually played out of your head offensively. Jazz over the last 10 games now the 9th best offensive team in the league. That's pretty incredible. With that said, to me, I said 3 players I think have changed the Jazz. They are Collin Sexton, they are Simone Fontecchio, and they are Walker Kessler. And we'll touch on those 3 as we continue. We are just getting started here on Locked On Jazz. Today's show is brought to you by Intercap Lending. And that brings me to my friend Steve Carter, who's only a friend, frankly, from work. We've gone to lunch a few times, but only really a friend because of the incredible work he does and the growth he's symbolic and spearheaded at Intercap. Intercap's pretty incredible. So Intercap, I was trying to look back at when they came. They had 2 branches when they first advertised on Locked On. And then my next notes say, hey, we're now in Tooele. We have 2 in Utah County and Ogden, and we have our. Then my next notes are we now have 15, and we go from St. George to Logan. And then and now we have branches in Boise, Las Vegas, and Phoenix. And then my next note is like, hey, by the way, we cover almost every state. Well, how do you do this? Because you get deals done. Because you find a way. Even in the early days, it was because they did such an incredible job in a no-brainer environment. Now it's difficult and it takes some effort. And guys like Steve Carter, our own personal loan officer at Intercap, take the time to make sure that they get you through the process, get you the best deal, and put you in the best position for a changing landscape. It's pretty awesome. Intercap Lending, NMLS number 190465 is at intercaplending.com. If you are in the market for a loan right now, you don't totally need to cringe. And Steve Carter will help you out. So give Steve a call at 385-800-8528. Or better, email me at dlock09@gmail.com. And we'll set you up with the VIP meeting. And you'll get the best customer service experience that you've ever had with our good friend over at Intercap, Mr. Steve Carter. Today's show is also brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel is the number 1 sportsbook for the Locked On Podcast Network. It's our official sportsbook for Locked On. And right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets if they are a new customer to FanDuel. That's right, $150 in bonus bets at FanDuel.com/locked on. Live same-game parlays, fun bets in the new Explorer tab. Make a parlay in the Parlay Hub. Best way to find popular plays. They have all sorts of fun things going on. The NBA's had a bunch of great games. NFL playoff weekend is ahead of us. There's all sorts of places to get into the action. It's all at FanDuel.com, and FanDuel.com/locked on gets you $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet for all new customers. Go do it now at FanDuel.com. Thanks so much for making Locked On Jazz your first listen of the day. The Utah Jazz are going to be back home against the Dallas Mavericks. So I think holiday packs are still available if you want to jump aboard on that at utahjazz.com. We're certainly a lot of fun and come to watch. So go visit utahjazz.com. By the way, if you're an NBA draft fan, there's Locked On NBA Big Board, which we all started listening to, and now we're wondering where we're picking because we keep winning. Let's talk about Walker Kessler. This dude is changing games. This dude is everything you've wanted him to be plus right now. Let's go to last night. In an offensive explosion of a night, the Detroit Pistons were 6 of 21 shooting. 29% when Walker Kessler was the closest defender. 6 of 21 shooting. Okay, Jalen Duren is the same year. Jalen Duren's really, really good. We were 9 of 18 when Duren was the closest defender. By the way, one note. If you go back to, I'm changing topics slightly. The game plan last night was to engage Cade Cunningham or Bojan Bogdanovic as much as you possibly could. So to a credit of the Jazz, who have not been actually very good this year, always of finding the pigeon that they're shooting at and staying on it, Cade Cunningham had to defend 21 shots last night. And the Jazz went 12 of 21 when Cade was the closest defender, 4 of 4 on threes. And they were 7 of 12 when Bojan was the closest defender. It's a really good job by the Jazz staying engaged and focused on the task at hand. It's 2 games in a row they've done that, and that's part of the reason why the offense is getting better. Let's go back to Walker. He had 6 blocked shots last night. They were 6 of 21. They made as many shots against Walker as they did as he blocked in the 21 shot attempts that he defended last night. So first thing to me is, as much as the defense was not good last night, or Detroit's offense was awesome, one of the two, or both, is the Jazz are doing something right if Walker's defending 21 shots last night. I think he was only on the floor I'd have to check the final number, but he was not on the floor a great deal last night. He got more because he finished the game. But Walker was on the floor last night for 29 minutes, and he defended 21 shots. Something's going right defensively because that's what you want. In the last 10 games, Walker is defending 7 shots a game inside 6 feet. Okay, that was 21 shots anywhere on the floor. I can give you last night inside 6 feet. If you, give me 1 second. Last night inside 6 feet, it's going to take me 1 second. This was not what I was planning for. I had it all loaded up to something else. Walker defended 12 shots inside 6 feet last night. The Pistons made 3. Like, you win an overtime game, this is why. This guy won the game last night. You win a game that was close, 1 possession here or there. The Pistons last night, within 6 feet of the basket, shot 33 percentage points below league average on shots within 6 feet of the basket that Walker Kessler was the closest defender. Okay, that's crazy. In the last 10 games of players who've played at least 7 games of the 10, so like Traveling Queen is a player, it's not a band, has played 1 game. Walker Kessler is defending 7 shots a night inside 10 feet. Teams are shooting 45% on those shots, which is 19 percentage points below league average. Walker's maybe the best way to say it, like, let's just try to, like, we did this with Rudy a bunch of times. Like, if teams are shooting 3 of 7 with Walker, and it's a 20 percentage difference. If a team shot 4 of 7, they would shoot 57% at the rim. They're going 3 of 7 at Walker at 42%. He's basically stopping a field goal a night. Okay. Well, it's only a shot. Yeah, right. Except for a point a night is worth about, I think, 3 wins. So he's winning 6 games a year if he plays defense like this. There aren't a lot of offensive players that win 6 games a year. for the season, Walker's having this great little fun thing, and we're going to start like checking it every day, where he and Rudy Gobert are going back and forth on who leads the NBA in rim defense. Walker just vaulted himself way ahead of Rudy Gobert. Walker is now, for the league, for the average, inside 6 feet, 15.6 percentage points below league average. Players are shooting 46% on shots that should be 62%. Rudy is second in the league at 14%. So Walker's now jumped way ahead of Rudy. They've been going back and forth like every single game. Actually, I don't think they're going to go back and forth here for a little while. Jalen Duren is the 6th best in the NBA. You watched that game last night. There wasn't anything close between the impact of Jalen Duren and Walker Kessler. So on an offensive, massive explosion night, Walker Kessler, to me, was as important as anyone who won that game for the Jazz last night. Walker Kessler has 10 straight games of positive plus-minus. It's pretty crazy. Now, we've won most of these games, right? We're now, I think, 7-3 or 8-2 in the last 10. Walker was a plus 15 last night in 29 minutes. Walker's last 10 games, here's his plus-minus in each of these games, okay? Last night, plus 15 in a 6-point win. Against Dallas, he's a plus 37 in a 37-point win. Against Miami, he's a plus 10 in an 8-point win. Against New Orleans, he's a plus 9 in a 7-point loss. Against San Antonio, he's a plus 1 in a 12-point win. So it's the one time where he's not wildly out of whack. Toronto, he's a plus 17 in a 7-point win. Detroit, he's a plus 17 in an 8-point win. Cleveland, he's a plus 5 in an 8-point loss. Brooklyn, he's a plus 9 in a 17-point win. Sacramento, he's a minus 28 and a minus 21-point loss. And in Portland, he's a plus 23 in an 8-point win. In New York, he's a plus 3 in a 4-point win. Okay? Like, something re-kicked. That interview last night, he said that he's just kind of re-engaged and he realized he was playing his favorite game and he got positive again. He was super negative. His body was language was terrible. He looked seriously miserable out there. It's great to see. We need him. But he is altering games on the defensive end right now at a very, very high level. And he's frankly, offensively, is playing pretty well. He needs to make free throws. It would make him more comfortable on the court. But he is really great. Simone Fontecchio and Collin Sexton's energy to me are part of what's changed this game. And I wanted to touch on George Rodman as well. We'll continue and see if I can get all those things in as we continue on today's edition of Locked On Jazz. Today's show is brought to you in part by our friends over at BetterHelp. The world is not the easiest place. And if you're finding it difficult, you're no different than anyone else. Listen to my opening thing today where I was like, I like positive affirmation. We're all figuring this thing out. So there are times where therapy might be the answer. And in a day and age where therapy can really help you out, but also it's often difficult to find the right therapist and figure out where you're going to go and how you're going to find time. Doing it online with BetterHelp might be the right answer for you. BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA get you 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. It's entirely online, so it's super convenient and flexible and suited to your schedule. You fill out a brief questionnaire, you get matched to a licensed therapist, and you switch therapists anytime, so there's no additional charge. That last piece is pretty important because out in the wild, you try to find a therapist. It's impossible because people need this, because it's valuable, because the world's hard. This is why it exists. And then you end up getting a therapist, you don't gel, and then you got to go find another one. Like, this is where BetterHelp is way more valuable. Yeah, I mean, I literally pregame last night spent 25 minutes talking to a friend about, or 20 minutes with like one of my close friends of life, and we're talking about therapy and this and that, like, and how, the whole family's doing it. Like, yeah, like, it's very common at this point, and it makes a lot of sense. So if it's something that would help you out, think of it as a performance-enhancing drug. BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA. Get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. Simone Fontecchio is really good. How's that? Simone Fontecchio is really good. There's a lot of reasons the game has changed for the Jazz. If you listen to Jordan Clarkson, with Holly Rowe after the game last night. He talks about we're all sharing the ball, we're all moving it. Simone Fontecchio goes in the starting lineup right when everything changes. It's just not a coincidence. He's just super solid. He plays the game right. He's a good teammate. The thing I love about Simone is it looks to me like when he checks out of the game, every single time he's exhausted. And I actually think there's something here about both Collin Sexton and Simone Fontecchio in how tired they are when they check out of games. Pretty hard for you not to be as tired as they are if they went that hard. We weren't playing particularly hard before these changes. But in the last 20 games, we're 12-8, and Simone started 20 games ago. And I'm sure there's some metric that I can use that tells me that this is the right thing. But I'm going to go with plays hard, is good defensively, is long, plays the game right, moves the ball, can shoot it, and has what I would call a true basketball heart. There's like a fine line on some basketball players where, hey, I was open, coach, I had to shoot it. Hey, they're not guarding me, I got to shoot it. And so suddenly you've taken 8 shots in 9 minutes and you justify, and you go look at each of them individually and you can totally justify it. But in the bag of work, you look at it and you're like, I don't think that's entirely the right way for the group as an orchestra. Yeah, I got it. Each individual shot was right. They're not guarding you. There's none of that out of Simone. There's none of that out of Simone. Like, sure, there's nights where he goes 1 of 8, but there are 8 shots that should be taken. And there's probably 13 shots that could be taken if you're Simone. He's beginning to have a little bit of a Kyle Korver feel to him as an offensive player, where he stretches the team, he's active, he's running, he brings defense with him, he's a good enough shooter, you got to pay attention to him. He's not 44% Kyle Korver, but he is 40% in the last 20 games. He's 46% where he's a little better than Kyle Korver. He can go to the basket if he needs to. And he's a pretty good rebounder at 4 boards and 2 assists a game. He's really good. Like, I honestly, he didn't start the season. It didn't happen. He had a really good camp. If you actually talk to everybody coming out of Hawaii, he was the one player that everyone's saying, he looks a lot better than he did last year. And if you go back to last year, I think we've talked about this a little bit. He had the ankle injury that he didn't reveal until pregame interviews or preseason interviews this year. But this guy's a game changer. And frankly, when he's over 30 minutes, it feels like we win. I don't think that's entirely true. And that's a funny metric to look at, but he's playing a lot. He played 35 last night. He played 31 against Miami. He played 36 the other night. He played 31 against New York. He played 31 against the Clippers in a loss. So it's probably not a metric that works, but he's on the floor. He's just easy to have out there. Collin is the craziest piece of work I've ever seen. And happy birthday to Collin. I think today's his 25th birthday. But man, there's something endearing to him. And he's another one. I don't think Collin actually gets exhausted. So I don't think he can leave the game being tired. But he's another one who, if you kind of go back, his play starts against the Knicks, like 12 games ago. He starts playing a lot. Okay, well, again, not sure he's the total reason, but we are 9-3 since he moved into the starting lineup. He's averaging 22 points a game. Unlike Jordan, who has great value, he's efficient every night. He's at 49% from the floor. He's 37% from 3. He's taking 6 free throws a game at 90%. That's super important. He makes a play or two a night that makes you go, what are you doing? And he dives coming around the backside of Jalen Duren with the game on the line and steals the ball. He plays so hard. A little recklessly. A little, like, sometimes he's Rene Descartes. You talk about wanting to be a blank slate that you learn everything. Sometimes Collin goes into a zone where he actually just becomes a blank slate. Okay. Fine. Not great. Not perfect. Not fouling down up 3. Not perfect. But the positives are endless. And the thing to me is that both Simone and Collin play so hard. And sometimes all the metrics and all the other stuff that I love to throw at you and all that doesn't matter. Play hard. And Collin plays so hard. He's got to play inside the realm of a team, and he's learning that. He's getting better, and he's going to learn how to play pick and roll. He's getting better and learning that. He's got to learn. He's still, at times, they put him in the ball in the hands at the top of the floor, and literally you can see him buffering because he's trying to do the right thing so much. I mean, talk about the purest heart I've ever been around. But I think those two guys, energy and effort and how hard they play and how tired they are has changed the team. You might ask Will about it. Open in the press conference in Boston before we play the best team in the NBA. All right, I want to take a second on George Rodman. Super interesting. He's the guy who does the challenges for the Utah Jazz, assistant coach. They've won 9 of their last 11 challenges. The one they've lost in that, one of them was Jordan Clarkson told him a challenge. Will believed him. George Rodman, you could see him on the bench going, ah! So he's won 9 of his last 10 challenges. Again, Walker Kessler stealing a point a game. Now that's not 9 out of 10 in 10 games, but every time you steal 2 points or 3 points in a challenge, that's worthy of like a point a night's 3 wins a season. So he's not doing it every night, right? He's 9 of his last 10. You know, we've played 30 games. He's probably challenged 20 times. We have a high challenge rate, and we have one of the highest success rates in the league. George Rodman literally sits on his computer and goes through every challenge in the entire NBA and looks at them, and then he guesses whether or not it's going to be overturned or not to practice and understand whether or not what's a good challenge and what's not. He takes this job super seriously, as does everybody in the organization, which is the coolest part about being a part of one of these things, is like if you know what Isaiah Wright does to be the best strength and conditioning coach and what Anthony Zamuro does for nutrition and what I'm now in a game where I have to mention everyone, Eric Phillips, our head of medical, or Barnett Frank does, like these guys are incredible, and the women involved as well, Lisa and the rest of the crew. Like I just picked 3 people. I just did that. Derek Arduino and Madeline Crandall of our PR staff working every second to do what they can to make the team the best they can. That's the level of focus. It's a pretty cool story. Like actually Salt Lake kid, grew up in Texas, but was originally in Salt Lake. And he takes this job super seriously, and there can't be anything harder than making that split-second decision of whether you're challenging off an iPad, that you're watching a replay, sitting behind the bench. Will Hardy looks over you got to make the call, and you've got to process in that time, am I going to get the call right? By the way, imminent possession is a huge part of this. Do we get the ball? The Jazz nail imminent possession every single time. Imminent possession means that after the call is made, who had the ball? They now say if the play had naturally proceeded, who gets the ball? And the Jazz end up with imminent possession like last night on the Kessler block. The key thing to the whole thing was the fact that the ball actually came to the Jazz. If you just get the block and don't get the foul on Walker, it's not actually worth that much because if they have the ball, they still have possession. You didn't really save that much. You probably saved the equivalent like 0.4 points, right? Like if it was going to be 2 free throws, here's the thing. It's going to be 2 free throws. It's a foul on Walker. It's going to be 2 free throws. The average free throw trip is 1.45 points. The average offensive possession is 1.1. So if you had blocked it and it was going to go out of bounds and it's their ball, it's not worth the challenge because now it's only 0.3 points advantage, 0.4 points. But he blocked it and the Jazz getting the ball. Well, now they get a 0. That's 1.4 you just gained. And you get a possession, which you would have gotten eventually anyway. So just call it 1.4. Okay, that's worth it. That's worth the challenge and the foul. If you don't get the possession, it's only worth like 0.4. It's not worth it. Those are the things that literally George has to decide in this short little period of time. And he's doing an incredible job, and it's helping us win games. So it's a cool story. Want to throw it out there. Probably worth talking about more. Probably worth having George on the show. We'll do that. All right. That is Locked on Jazz. Thank you very much for tuning in today. Thank you for being in every year. Thank you for all the people that say hi. Thank you to those who get a chance to say hi. I don't want to be exclusive to just those who were like able to buy tickets and be in the Toyota Club. That seems really unfair by me. Have a great day. I appreciate you. How's that? And I hope I'm thankful to those who appreciate what we do. Have a great one. Talk to you soon. Talk to you from Boston tomorrow. Now, time to send you the first ever 24/7 sports channel, Locked on Sports Today.